digest here. Thank you for that. Joining me now, Sara Azari, criminal trial attorney and News Nation legal analyst. And you can also check out Sara's crime podcast, The Presumption, on all podcast platforms and YouTube. Sara, thank you for being here. So we've got 3 conspiracy, 1 obstruction charge. Let's talk about the 4 counts and how this is different, this January 6th indictment from, for instance, the documents case, the classified documents case in Florida.
Yeah, good to be with you, Marnie. It's very different. I think it's more defensible for Trump. I think Trump here is going to say, I had First Amendment rights to call this a big lie. More importantly, I was relying on the advice of counsel. In the document case, even though it's more complex in terms of the classified nature of the documents, it'll take longer. There's lawyers that are testifying against him because the attorney-client privilege is gone. It's a very straightforward case in terms of proof. It's enough that he retained documents when he left the office and that he was caught in text messages, surveillance, et cetera, people on his behalf, moving around these boxes and obstructing justice when he should have turned over these documents. Here, Marnie, we're dealing with intent. It's not enough that he knew that the lie was a big lie. He had to have intent, and the prosecutors have to prove that he had intent to deceive and to defraud the United States, among other things. So whenever we talk about intent, we're talking about getting into somebody's head. And so we have to look to circumstantial testimony and evidence to be able to prove that. I think that's where this becomes more defensible for him than the document case.
Right. And the word knowingly appears multiple times throughout the 45-page document. January 6th charge, which one of these 4, the 3 conspiracy or the obstruction, will be the hardest to prove? Count 4, I understand, could be a little bit more sticky.
Yeah, because count 4 has to do with infringing on the rights of 8.1 million voters who voted for Biden, right? And that the goal of the conspiracy as to count 4 was to infringe on these constitutional rights to vote. Well, Trump that was not the goal for Trump. The goal for Trump was to stay in office, to stay in power and retain power. And so I think, to me, that is probably the murkier charge of the 4.
Let's talk about these co-conspirators. 5 of the 6 that were named, Rudy Giuliani among them. Could they flip? What extra complication might they add in a case like this? And are you surprised that we aren't seeing an indictment against any of them at this point?
Well, Marnie, to me, what stood out was that it refers to these 6 co-conspirators. It does not say unindicted or indicted co-conspirators. So we don't know. They could be, part of sealed indictments. They could have already flipped against the president, or they might flip in the future. But I think anytime you have this many co-conspirators in any case, the exposure goes up. It's more likely that people will flip because they want to help themselves, especially if they're lawyers, because lawyers have a lot more to lose. I mean, not to say we're better than other citizens, but, we can't practice law, for example. So I think that it is very likely that people have already flipped on him, and if they haven't, they will.
Jack Smith was quick to point out he wants a speedy trial. That's something he seeks, he desires. We're 15 months or so out from the election. Will we see a trial before people head to the polls?
I think we will, Marnie. And I think the reason is because, thousands of rioters have been charged. So many of them have been, sentenced already. The evidence is very clear. We saw it in the January 6th committee hearings. And so it's very different than that document case with the complexity of the type of documents we're dealing with. And so the evidence is clear. Of course, I don't think Trump's going to go to trial within the 70 days by statute, but the delay is not going to go beyond the elections because of the simplicity. And I think also the prosecutors, Jack Smith, has strategically not involved other co-conspirators in this case, keeping it very lean and very clean so that other defendants are not a reason to delay.
Let's play this forward a little bit, and these are big what ifs, but if convicted, Trump would face what for these charges?
So he faces, there are no mandatory minimums, as sometimes, federal statutes require, but there are maximums, and he would never get the maximum. On the first count of conspiring to defraud the United States, he's facing a maximum of 5 years. On the conspiracy to obstruct a proceeding and obstructing a proceeding, I think he's facing a maximum of 20 years on each of those. And then he's facing a maximum of 10 years on the violation of voter rights.
All right, so in court tomorrow, lay out what people can expect. Again, no cameras in federal courtrooms, so we're going to have to rely on people inside recounting what's going on.
Yeah, and I hope that the no cameras changes by the time of trial. But people can expect that Donald Trump will be booked and arrested. He will face the judge, a magistrate judge, not Judge Chutkan, who's been assigned to the case, and plead not guilty. His detention will not be an issue, much like in the other cases. He'll be subject to some sort of an appearance or a signature bond. And then there will be a trial date set, and there will be discovery deadlines, and there'll be motion deadlines. And I think there's going to be some standing orders from the court. So again, the standard procedure of pleading not guilty and getting dates set.
And we have the benefit of seeing how this has already played out a couple times before. Those cameras, still photography inside the courtroom in New York when that indictment came down. Sara Azari, thank you for helping us digest, better understand the next steps here. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Marnie.